Shaking over. They're well underway on their program. Kathy?
Yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually working for a paedophile. He was a very, very well-known, extremely famous politician, and his best friends were a very famous artist and also a High Court judge. And they all went to the same school, and these men were in their 80s. When this old man died, his last words to his wife was, "I've been a bastard." And I found videos afterwards of what he'd been doing, and it was mostly boys, and they started at maybe 2 years old. There was a lot of, not masochistic,
sadomasochistic,
yeah.
sadistic.
And these boys went up to about 14, 15. Anyway, my question is, when you're dealing with these such powerful people, how do you do anything?
Because they're terrified. They are absolutely terrified of exposure. And what I am doing, and you may think I'm getting emotive, and I am, because this is to do with children. But when you actually stand up and use the words with people and tell them the truth, and that involves using some unpleasant words, you see, it's almost like they snap awake and then they pay attention to you. But I did a talk in South Wales on one case for that mother. There were 72 people in the room, and it was unbelievable, the tension in the room. And before the end of the meeting, there were people saying, "We've got to do something about this." And I hadn't finished, and they were swapping numbers and saying, "Where do you live? You're close to me. We need to go and see the counsellor." And it was phenomenal, because what was happening was those people were starting to get motivated. So I have gone into one specific very dark area, but if you want to know how bad the people are we have in power, we're not dealing with people corrupted by power, wealth, homosexual or lesbian, whatever they want to be, fine. We're not just at that level. We're dealing with people who like abusing children. And I will say not what I can prove at the moment, but what I believe. I believe that these people have formed groups that are so powerful, they are using our public system to feed their habit. And I've got police officers who communicate with me who also believe that. And I can tell you that some of the other people motivated in this subject are retired police officers and some special forces people who operate groups digging information. The corruption in Westminster is virtually absolute, and the few good people have not got the guts to stand up. Why has it happened? Because if you discredit our Parliament with these horrible things, people turn against it. And then you say quite calmly, well, we don't really need Westminster because we've got Brussels. Well, thank you. Yeah? So these are very dark, heavy subjects. And on one hand, I apologise for giving them to you. But we are adults. And there are no wars without people getting blown up and killed, or children or innocent people getting hurt. Mr. Blair thinks there is, but there's no such thing. And we have got to get to grips with things. I've given some talks in churches, and that's extraordinary, because a lot of churchy type people, they don't want to know anything about love and light. They don't want to hear about the wicked stuff. And that is why the churches are crumbling, because they have also been subverted. Most of the people, coming on to a lighter subject, who are spiritually aware, operate from home in small groups. They will not go near the established churches. Yeah?
Brian, when you said that the whole of Westminster is corrupt, etc., you were saying that in the context of observations about paedophilia and stuff. Were you actually saying that you suspect that paedophilia is rampant in the power
I think it is.
Or just that it's corrupt?
I think that there is sufficient paedophilia in Westminster to form a core of major corruption, because that is the ultimate hold you have over somebody. You can be homosexual these days, nobody's bothered. Perhaps that's quite right. But you cannot be an abuser of children. It is not acceptable. So as you see the tone of morality drop, so you have to use something worse and worse in order to control and infect people. Now, a police officer said to me, and this is the interesting thing, I don't go finding these people, they come to me with information. His words were, Brian, if you want to find the paedophiles in Westminster, you should start by looking at the Tory party. Now, maybe that policeman was completely off his rocker. Maybe he was having a joke. But I'm going to say, I don't think so. And if anybody's aware of a magazine called Scallywag that was printed in the early 90s, they will find some very detailed analysis of very unpleasant things going on amongst people in the political realms. Now, if I may, I'm going to stop talking on that subject because that is the worst scenario. The rampant use of NLP without people's permission with a political agenda is very dangerous, but the fact that we are not recognising what's being done to us is the most dangerous. So all we need to do is say we are seeing it, and then we can do something about it.
Could I just say, I wonder whether, if it is as widespread as you projected, and certainly there's vast amounts of evidence, I wonder if there's not some force or phenomenon who making it their job to introduce paedophilia into influential circles with a view to compromising people who might be useful to their cause later on.
Well, if I go back to the Soviet doctrine, and the reason that when I joined the Navy and when other people joined the military, depending on what classification of material you were going to have access to, you had a total background check, your family were checked, your drinking habits, had you been unfaithful to your wife, were you a closet homosexual, all of these things were checked. And the reason why was because you could be blackmailed. Now, if you talk about putting people under pressure now, how do you do it? So somebody's, well, let me think of a member of Parliament who's used rent boys.
Oh, just up there.
Well, whoever it is, I'm not going to say on camera, but we know we have MPs who are now at the stage of using rent boys or advertising for partners in their underwear on websites. That is the level at which our Parliament has got to. Now, if that is the base level, and you are a particularly evil person, how do you put pressure on them? Let's drag them down a bit deeper. Let's go for 14-year-old girls. Well, I'm not interested in those, they say, so then you offer them the other side.
Do you know if the book, The Gulag of the Family Courts, is still available?
Yes, it is.
That lady might find it very interesting trying to get hold of a copy of that book, because if you want detailed analysis, factual backup, that book is unbeatable.
You might also look at a gentleman called Ian Joseph. I can't remember the address for his website, but he's in Monaco, and he is a very generous, quite wealthy man, and he helps all sorts of mums and people with problems over their children. And in his book, one of the key bits of advice he gives is don't go near social services. Now, he may be wrong, but I'm just quoting the advice.
Right, Brian,
yes.
Can you refresh my memory? You probably know this off the top of your head. There's a very good documentary which was made by Yorkshire Television